Welcome to another episode of the She Can Show, where we shift, heal, and expand so that more women in business and any course in their life can really shift their perspective, heal what they're working on, and expand into the greatest version that they are, basically. And so every time I come here and I present to you a new phenomenal woman to connect with that will show you how to shift, heal, and thrive in your own world. And today is no different. I want to welcome Irene to the show. So welcome, Irene. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm so excited to be here. So yes, everything that your show is about is exactly what I aim to do and serve moms. So I am an empowerment coach for moms, which means that I am a guide, a facilitator to help them really live their best life, to go from the life draining reality that we find ourselves in so often to the life enhancing one, where we look within for the answers, we see opportunities for growth and learning, and just really step into an empowered space versus being at the mercy of our circumstances, being at the mercy of our partner's mood or our child's behavior, and kind of going into that spiral and that hamster wheel that keeps us stuck in the frustration and the overwhelm and the resentment and all of those things that take us out of joy.
It's like you're preaching to the choir here. I'm a mum of two children. One of them has got autism, and it's single mum mode sometimes as well. So it's been a bit of I was like, yes. So if you're listening to this is for you. For those women out there that think that they don't know, they don't know. Is motherhood actually for me? I'm not doing it as well as I should be, and all these types of quotation marks. And so you deal with helping women thrive, mothers thrive in motherhood. What does that actually mean? What does that look like?
So it begins with defining motherhood is the way I see it. Motherhood is like after kids come into the picture, it's everything. It's our relationships. It is parenting. It's our own self-care. So it's the entire experience. And thriving in motherhood is about being on a journey of empowerment. So an empowered mom works to nurture her innate trust and wisdom, to cultivate that trust within that shows up as confidence on the outside, to hear that inner voice, that inner sanctimommy voice that is always judging us and criticizing us from within, and seeking self-love and compassion as her guiding forces. So it's not that we reach some destination where everything is easy and we've got it all together, but it's about having this deep understanding and confidence in ourselves and being willing to go on the journey. And when I say self-mastery, what that means to me is I follow this model of 4 pillars of self-mastery. So it's mastering our well-being, mastering our mind, mastering our emotions, and mastering our communication. And when I say mastering, again, it's being on the journey towards self-regulation and showing up from a place of trust and confidence.
I love all that. That feels empowering just hearing it. And I think we have so much high expectations of what it's going to be like when we get into motherhood. And honestly, I was like, this is not what I pictured. Where is the white picket fence and everything else that goes with it? So I love your work. I love absolutely how you're helping women to feel empowered, and not from a place of take your, get empowered so that I think there's this concept about motherhood that I've heard throughout the ages about putting your children first. Yes. Put your children first. And so you feel guilty just doing some self-care practices. Yes. Do you find that happens in some of your experience?
Absolutely. We come from this place of, yes, giving. And I think as young girls, it is programmed into us that we put others' needs. We mostly saw models from either our moms or caregivers or people around us where this selfless giving is the memo that we all get. And when we step outside of that, yes, we feel guilty. We don't know how to ask for support. It feels like conflict, because if my children don't want me to leave and go on that walk, oh, fine, I'll just stay to make them happy, not realizing that it's actually the current buzzword around self-care, which is like filling our cup and putting our oxygen mask first. Yes, we cannot operate from this breakdown lane. And the only way our kids learn to respect themselves is by seeing us do the same. So I have a very specific framework that I take clients through where we establish self-care from a place of intention. So it's not just the things that we do, because the biggest things done without purpose are not going to fill our cup, or whatever methodology you want to say it around, but the smallest things done with intention can. And often self-care is believed to be this thing I have to somehow escape and do on my own. I can have a dance party with my kids with intention that this is like connection and filling us up, and it becomes self-care. I can watch a show with my husband where we're cuddled together and we're laughing and we're talking, and that's kind of like a mini date night that fills my cup of connection. I can, have a cup of tea where I'm just focused on this 2-3 minutes that I get to just take in this warm tea and comfort myself. That can be self-care.
I love all of that because it is purposeful. Because sometimes we're hearing stories about, go take a spa day, and you're on a spa by yourself, and you're like, this is not the best. This is lonely. So I think that's beautiful how you involve the family as well, and you make it an inclusive practice rather than a separate one, because we want to include our family as much as possible as well, rather than it's you over there, me over there type thing.
Because we are connected beings, and one of the tenets of self-care, so when I operate from self-care, it's what do you need to feel energized, what do you need to feel rested, and what do you need to feel connected to yourself, to others, and to something greater, whatever your beliefs may fall. But we are meant to be connected beings, and if we don't foster that connection, instead try to show up from this frustrated, drained place, we are not operating in connection, even if we're present, quote unquote present, physically present, not mentally or emotionally present.
Yeah. I love what you're saying, and I can totally relate to all of that. And I think that it's just a healthy, nice, harmonious way of living. I'll try to avoid the word balance, because I think that word could get so overused sometimes, and it can feel unreachable almost.
It is. Balance in its true form is I have to take from one to give to another. So I'm always searching for the thing that is going to create that equality. It's not equality that matters. It's first like equity. If I am completely present in what I'm doing, I could spend 15 minutes completely immersed and present with my kids. And to them, it's going to feel like 2 hours of me being checked out, not really paying attention, thinking about work. So when we can create that equity in what we're doing and presence, and bring that energy of connection and love and high vibration to our relationships and our experiences, then balance becomes a moot point. Like we don't need balance because we're present and we feel that, and that fills us up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I feel your passion through the screen, and I love it. Is there a point in time when you was like, I need to do this work. This work's really important to me, and this is my why. What made you get to this point?
Yeah. So my journey was kind of spread out over 4 to 5 years. So I try to make it a lot shorter for clients. But what it started for me was I had 2 kids in a span of 15 months, and I was at home with them, and I was lost. I was just snapping at everybody. I thought my husband and I aren't going to make it till the next month. Like every month, I would go into my room regularly and close the door and just cry. Like, I can't do this. So it began with me just being like, okay, it can't stay like this, but I didn't really know where to go. So I started figuring out a way to like insert 30 minutes of exercise with the kids, and and taking care of me and changing my diet. And that led me to health coaching. I became a certified health coach. I started working with moms in that way. And that was like the first step. And it was like, okay, there's something else. And then I heard about parenting coaching. I'm like, yes, because it's like, no matter how much I took care of myself, there was still this divide between how I wanted to show up as a parent. So then I added that piece, and that got better. And then it was like, okay, now I want my marriage to get better. And I added like relationship in. And what it came down to, as I kept like trying to figure out what my true path was, it was really about the mom herself. and how she was showing up and learning to show up from this place of empowerment and choice and possibility. And that's what completely changed all of my relationships with myself, first and foremost, with my kids, with my husband. And that's what I strive to bring to other moms. It's this healing, this awareness, this understanding of ourselves that allows us to show up in a way that creates influence in our circumstances versus the way we've been led to believe we need to parent and show up, which is force and demanding and control and having everybody else change so that we get to feel happy and calm and peaceful. And realizing it's none of that. We get to feel all of those things even when our kids are being little jerks, or our husband comes home grumpy, or everything, like we burn dinner and everything's a mess. Now I can just kind of let it roll off and laugh. It's not like a knock in my attempt to show up as perfect, right? Yeah.
Completely. I think when you was talking about the force element and just being there, and it just felt so heavy, like, and oh my gosh, where is the joy in that as a mother? Like, there is none. So
there is none. And you're left waiting. You're left waiting with this resentment that they won't do what they need to do. You can't make them do what they need to do so that we get to feel enough. So we get to feel good about ourselves. Like, what is the goal in that, and that forcing? And we never learned to question that. We never were given the tools because likely we were raised from parents and caregivers who weren't aware, and they just pass down their uninvestigated beliefs. They pass on their unprocessed pain and their unresolved issues, and we carry it. And unless we change that trajectory, we just continue to pass them on.
Completely. And it reminds me of an episode of Bewitched. It might be beyond some of these people's age, but in terms of the woman that does everything, and she then sets her apron on and she gets to click her fingers, push her nose, and everything's perfect and everything works out and she's okay. And that high expectations on a woman to be that person, all things for everybody, is huge weight.
It is a huge weight. And what we didn't learn is we think that change happens in this anger and this demanding that other people change. So as society has kind of shifted from that, Leave It to Beaver or Bewitched or whatever the case may be, and it has shifted, but it shifted in almost a way that we as women, as moms, show up angry that we have to carry this burden. And change doesn't happen in anger. Change doesn't happen in force. It happens when we start questioning the status quo, and we use our frustration and anger as fuel to seek support, to seek guidance, to create the change that we desire. Because here we talk about, no matter how much moms are called to, change and shift these demands of equality, there continues to be these societal pressures, these expectations, these judgments very specific to moms. Often from other moms, because we want to feel good about ourselves, so we're going to cast judgment elsewhere. And it's when we learn to question this within ourselves that we show up differently. And that comes from a place of love, compassion, and acceptance, not anger.
Completely. And that's when you can see the real shift, and you can allow that healing work, and you can allow yourself time to not think that healing has to be like that. And you can then expand into the woman that you were always supposed to be, but somehow society said to you, no, that's not who you're supposed to be. So I love that. And I think your message is so powerful, and I hope that the right people are listening to this to take those steps to say, yes, I want that for my life, and not have to settle. Because I think we're in an economy where we're like, we can't have it all. And I think that's a big fat lie that stops us from demanding more from ourselves as well.
Exactly. Or that this is the way it's always been. This is what I know. And again, we're so conditioned to look outside of ourselves for the change that we are taking our kids to therapy, or we're telling our spouses and partners that they need to go to therapy to fix. That was me for the longest time. My husband would come home so angry, just grumpy and angry. And I was always like, I can't deal with this. You need to fix this. You need to figure this out. And when I started focusing within and just shifting how I showed up, which meant that I could listen to him vent without taking on his anger. And I would simply be like, I'm not available for your anger. I'm happy to listen. I'm happy to hear about your day. The amazing thing happened is that he doesn't show up angry anymore. Like me pushing back and demanding he change is like a signal to the brain, like I'm going to dig my heels in and show up exactly as I am until you accept me. And when I finally accepted him and I learned how from within, it created the possibility for him to shift and heal.
I love that. I love that you when you discover that, I guess the realization of giving a space to just do what you want to do, but I'm not available to be taking that energy. I love that, because I think as well, many mothers are empathic. They care so much sometimes that they have to kind of disassociate almost to switch off, so they're not taking on everyone's issues. But it must be draining coming from that place, not having that tool set in their tools to know how to even do that.
It can be, because especially as you just said, moms feeling like we need to take on everybody's feelings, because again, something we learned from childhood is that those feeling sad, disappointment, feeling rejected, those don't feel good in the body. So we want to protect our children from feeling those feelings. So we feel we need to fix everything and control everything and manage everything. When actually, when we learn that those feelings are safe and all we have to do is sit with our child while they're in them. I mean, I had experience with my 7-year-old son, and one night we're laying there and he's like, and he says to me, what did he say? I'm junk. That's what he says. He's like, I'm junk. And I was like, in the past you'd be like arguing, like, no, you're not, you're the best little boy, blah, 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 right? That's how we fix. Instead, I was like, tell me more. And he's like, well, we had just gone bowling that night. And he's like, well, we went bowling, and his brother, he's like, Dee was just so much better and I just couldn't do it. I was like, oh, and that makes you feel like junk. He's like, yeah, I'm nothing. I can't do it. I was like, oh, I see. I was like, did you have, and I just questioned him. I was like, is it possible that the first time you try something, it's kind of hard? And he's like, well, yeah. I said, so I'm curious, are you a little boy who tried something for the first time and it was hard, or are you junk? And he's like, oh, I'm just a little boy who tried something for the first time. Because as kids, the way we interpret things is we make things mean something about ourselves. And no matter how much I said to him, oh no, you're a great little boy, you're not junk, and argued with him, he would say what he needed to say to me to like agree, but deep down he would still be like, yeah, I am. And he would then look to be proving that over and over and over. But when we can just be there with them and not take on the feeling for them, we can ask the questions that allow them to shift out of that. And that comes from our healing, our realization that these feelings are safe, even though they don't feel great.
Completely. It's almost accepting and validating what the person's saying, but not necessarily agreeing with them. You're just giving them that container, being that container, exactly. So that you're not going to be in a vacuum. You don't want to be the vacuum.
Exactly. We can't, yes, we can, that's a perfect analogy. We can't be the container which they can pour into and we can hold space for them if we're the vacuum sucking up all their feelings and trying to make them go away. That's a great analogy. Yeah.
So I love that it's such a everyday practical, let's just see how this goes and how this works. It's just feels like ease, it feels like flow, it feels like joy to be a mother, the way that you described it, rather than the heaviness of the society's expectations and maybe another mother, like a grandmother, looking over you and saying, I want to do it like that, I want to do it like that.
Yes.
So it sounds very so transformative. How can this is the time for you just to like celebrate your business, what you do and how you do it. I want you to literally tell any woman now that says this resonates with me, how they can move forward with you.
Absolutely. Well, I love to invite, the first step is people to join my free group. Get a sense of me and what I'm about. And that's on Facebook at Thrive in Motherhood. And then from there, I work with clients. My long-term clients are 6-month program. It creates this container where we really go on a journey from the overwhelm, from the frustrated, from the trying to get life to behave, to feeling confident in who we are, to feeling calm, to be able to approach. It's not that I don't have hard days. It's not that I don't hide in my closet crying some days. I have the tools to shift out of that very quickly. It's not that we don't have those moments. It's being able to honor ourselves through the experience. So really inviting people to the group for the first time, or send me a message to see how we can work together. You can check out my website, irenemckennacoaching.com. I have a single session program where it's just jump in, let's dive into this one thing, and then go from there. So there's a variety of ways to work with me. So in that 6-month program, I work with clients 1, 2, or 3 times a month, depending on the level of support you want, your financial situation. Like, I really try to work with clients to make it available and accessible, because I am passionate about moms having access to thriving in motherhood.
Which sounds like an exceptional way to it just sounds like an amazing set of programs that you offer, and it's available to, like you said, a wide variety of different incomes. And that's
start with the free group, start with this, go to the single session, and then from there we can talk about a longer partnership if creating this change is what you really desire in your life right now.
Fantastic. I've loved having this conversation with you, and exploring all the multifacetedness of motherhood and what that really means to really thrive in motherhood as well. So thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's been my honor. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. Just gonna stop. Okay.